Do you want to improve at a quicker pace? Check out the GitGud Course. Instead of just understanding concepts, you'll learn how to implement them directly into your driving. What makes it effective is the approach and practical drills. Together, we're gonna focus on breaking down those complex concepts into small digestible bits that are simple to understand. Everything from the course was tested and refined during the years in coaching sessions, so what I ended up with was the ones that I saw were the most effective. Let's elevate your racing skills together. Now for the track guide. Guys, before starting, if you want to support the channel, giving it a like or a subscribe to this video, it's a free way to do it. Now going into the track guide itself, for turn 1 it's really important to avoid braking too hard. Our braking reference right here will be the number 2 board on the left side, so slightly before number 2 we will apply the brakes, and initially we want to make sure that we're hitting our peak pressure while we're still having the steering wheel straight. We want to prioritize here the braking budget to go into decelerating the car first, because this will be a long corner, and if we start already having a bit of turning angle while we still apply the brake in the first phase, then we will just not use as efficient as we can the grip levels. So really want to hit the peak pressure, and then whenever we're releasing, then is where we want to add more and more steering angle. In terms of the approach, this whole corner is quite long, so we will treat it as a double apex corner, where the first apex will be quite close to this orange square on the right side. We're gonna apex at this point in time, and still on the brakes right now, what we want on purpose is the car to track out wider towards the left. So we don't want to keep a very tight line all the way to the exit of the corner, because this will mean that we'll have to wait a lot. Instead, we can just put more speed, we can just release the brakes more aggressively like you see here, and then the car will arrive at this point right here. Notice that it's not all the way to the white line on the left. The car is positioned in the, let's call it center left. It's not all the way to the left, it's not center, 100% center, it's mostly center left. And this helps because right now, because we extended the radius into the last part of the corner, or our second apex, we can get a lot earlier on the gas, and this is key. And if you look on the brake trace, this is what you should be aiming for. Initially you want a bit harder on the brakes because you want to stop the car down, but then you want to release it quite quickly, but just hold a couple of percentages there to give some weight on the front tires to allow you to turn the car more, but more importantly to allow the car to track out wider to the left and to carry more speed. This will be key here, speed and rotation. And now when we take our second apex, which will be past the middle of this white curb, we don't want to go on this curb. If we put our tire on it, the car will jump forward and we will run out of track. Instead, we want to apex here towards the white line, so don't use this curb, apex towards the white line. And what's important here is to go very aggressive on the throttle and very early. Notice that at this point in time here, we are already at close to 100% throttle. So at this point in time, slightly before getting to the curb itself, we're back on power. And this is the advantage of the double apex approach. This is the advantage of going wider, opening the corner, and now just gaining time on the exit. And you don't want to modulate too much. Obviously you might need to modulate a bit, but the idea will be on your way out to be all the way here to make sure that you carried the maximum possible amount of speed. Now for the next corner, this can be quite tricky. Let me start saying that it will be impossible for you to arrive to the right side of the track to open up perfectly the next corner. So it's better to sacrifice it a bit and go here all the way to the left rather than going slower to be on the right side. So this line will still be faster, but now because you're not having enough time, when you'll be almost center of the track, you have to brake into the next corner. As a reference for braking, this is quite hard to do it with a reference because you don't have too many things that you can use. It's done mostly on feel, and the best advice that I can give you, try to approximate the distance through this kink in the white line here. Because if your vision will be at the kink in the white line, then you know it's one car length and just a bit of something. So it's not a precise reference, but this is the best one that you can use in my opinion, because it forces you to look through the apex of the next corner. It forces you to look ahead where you want the car to turn, so this makes it a bit easier. Now in terms of the braking itself, it's the same thing as in the previous corner. It's not as long, but you still have to trail brake, because what's important here, what's important for you to know is the point where you go back on throttle. And it's a small mistake in this lap, but you want to be on the gas around here when you get to the curb, because then you will be able to fully commit. You see, a slight modulation on the throttle around here. Instead of this, of going up and down, you just want to go up, but you have to be a bit more patient. The reason why you might have this mistake is because you're braking a bit harder than you should. So instead of braking like this, harder and hold it like this duration, you can brake a bit softer and hold it for longer. This will give you more speed and also more turn in. So the main reason many drivers go earlier on the gas and they realize, oops, it's too early, is because they slow the car down a bit too much and the car feels slow. So because the car feels slow, they go back on the power. So if this happens to you, just experiment with braking a bit softer, because either way in this corner, what you need to do is you want to trail brake a lot. You need to hold the brakes quite longer than you think, and you need to cut this part to the grass here. If you're not cutting this much, you're missing out big time, because ideally on the exit, this is key. You want to be exactly on the white line before turning into the next corner, because the next corner leads to a decent straight and we have to prioritize the exit. So we don't want to sacrifice the next corner by just having the car on the right side. So obviously if your car reaches the right side of the track at the exit of this corner, you had a very early apex point and a very early throttle application. Experiment with staying more on the brakes, sacrifice the entry speed so you will have a better line, and then when you go back on throttle, hit this 100% around here, because for the next corner we will do a lift. But if you're not able to hit 100% throttle before the lift, you will be at a slight disadvantage, because whenever you're dropping the throttle from 100% to 0, you will shift more weight to the front tires, more energy will go into the front tires, because you're dropping the throttle from 100 to 0 in comparison to, let's say, 85 to 0. There's more weight transfer going on and the car will have more turning capability, and this is exactly what happens here. As a quick note, avoid going on top of that curb, so just go around it, and on your exit you should use all this track. So you can see here there's a bit more lap time to be found, just a bit earlier on the gas to let the car push more. But going into the next corner, in terms of braking here, the reference for braking here will be before this curb. You see, there's again one car length before the beginning of the curb where we're applying the brakes. You want to brake in a straight line. This is a quite heavy braking zone. And what's key here is to use this curb on the left side. So make sure you're using everything here. You want to open up this corner because this leads to a tricky chicane. And from this chicane, if you don't have a good throttle application, you will lose a lot of lap time. So in order to maximize your entry and make sure that you can be early on the gas, you have to take advantage of every inch that you can use in terms of how you can open up on entry. So we must have our left tires. Look how much we're using here. It's almost brushing the grass. So this is key here. You must feel in your force feedback that you're almost brushing the grass. That's a good indicator that you're using everything. Now in terms of apexing here, you really have to go very close to this red sausage curve here on entry, and the moment that you get at the red sausage, you must put the throttle. What's important here, the brake release has to happen quickly, because if you hold too much brake pressure while you're turning, you might experience a bit of understeer. The front tires can go past the limit of grip because of too much braking pressure, so your car could turn less even though you have more brakes. So make sure the brake release is nice and it happens very quickly. You want to brake earlier and have a quicker brake release than to brake later and have to brake harder to compensate from a late braking point and then understeer because of the braking. Super important to rotate the car early enough, because now we're going to smash the throttle like this, just a tiny bit of modulation because the steering wheel had a bit of angle, but then whenever we bring it back up to 0 degrees, then we're going full throttle again. And see, this is key here. You must have this aggressive 0 to 100 throttle application, a slight modulation here and there, but then that you have a very good exit. Now for the next corner, super important to shorten the distance. So what a lot of drivers will do here, they will turn more towards the left to align the car to be all the way on the left when braking into the next corner, but you will cover a longer distance. You will just make your lap time a bit worse. It's not much, but it's like half a tenth or so. Instead, what we're gonna do, apex around this curve and then go diagonally towards your left side like this. In terms of braking here, again, it's better to use the apex as a reference for braking, so the distance from the curb. So at this point in time, again, 1 car length or tiny bit more than 1 car length, we're gonna apply the brakes, and we just want to use the brakes as a tool for rotation. We don't want to slow the car down too much. It's more to put more front end grip. So just holding into 10% like this, getting very closely to this curve, don't touch it, and then putting the throttle back up. Notice how soft is the brake. It's just soft, and we have to hold it for longer. And now for the last corner, it's the same thing. Reference for braking, you just have to look and approximate the distance to the apex. Add just a tiny bit of brakes. It's even less than before. It's like 5% and for a slower direction, and then smash the throttle like this. If you can avoid that curve, because this will unsettle the car and you will have to steer more and you will have to scrub more speed. So if you can get like pixel perfect to the white line without getting on that curve, it will be a slightly quicker line. But in short, that's a track guide around lime rope with the Ferrari. Hope you have a great week ahead, and if you want to improve at a quicker pace, check out my website, check out my course. I'll be seeing you in the next one. Bye bye.